Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. In this AMD Ryzen 5 9600X build guide, we'll cover everything that you need to know to build a powerful and personalized Ryzen 5 9600X gaming PC, including the best graphics card for Ryzen 5 9600X, the best RAM for Ryzen 5 9600X, the best motherboard for Ryzen 5 9600X, and more. We'll give you specific build templates for both a budget and premium Ryzen 5 9600X build. If you get value out of this video, please give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. With that, let's jump into it. Let's start off with the best GPU for the Ryzen 5 9600X, because whatever our PC budget, we want to ensure that we get the best CPU and GPU combo possible. Now, given the still capable Ryzen 7600 and 7600X can be had for just about $190 US, we want to make sure that the extra money that we've spent on our Ryzen 5 9600X is worth it. I'd recommend a minimum of an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 4070 12GB GPU or an AMD Radeon RX 7800 XT 16GB GPU. Now, we can take this CPU all the way to the currently fastest available graphics card in the RTX 4090 on the NVIDIA side or RX 7900 XTX on the AMD side. Even with these ultra high-end GPUs, the Ryzen 9600X, it's going to perform very well at 1440p and 4K. Though if you have extra money in your budget, the next thing to do would be to jump up to a higher performance gaming CPU. But for most mid-range GPUs in the $450 to $1,000 price range, the Ryzen 9600X, it's going to offer impressive performance. For our build, Gigabyte sent over their NVIDIA RTX 4070 Super 12GB WindForce OC model, which is usually available for the $599 MSRP. The WindForce OC has a really compact footprint in our build, while providing strong cooling. In fact, I really didn't feel the need for a GPU support bracket given its shorter design, but you can always add one in if you want. Great value GPUs for the Ryzen 9600 right now include the RX 7800 XT 16GB at about $480, the RX 7900 GRE 16GB for $530, and the RX 7900 XT 20GB for $690. Next up is the best motherboard for Ryzen 5 9600X, and we go through all of them in our best motherboard for Ryzen 9000 video, so I'm just covering the highlights, and I'll leave the video link down in the video description if you want a deeper dive or more options. We covered chipset differences in that video, but the short version is that you want a currently available B650 motherboard or possibly a B850 when they arrive in September if they're well priced, and avoid the X, A, and B840 chipsets for the 9600X. We will need to use the BIOS flashback feature on the existing B650 boards to make them compatible with Ryzen 9000 series CPUs. It's really easy to do. I did it in this build, and we do a step-by-step in our how to build a PC video. For gamers, the main motherboard features that you want to focus on are basically whether you want 2 or 3 M.2 NVMe SSD slots on the board, how much rear panel USB connectivity that you want, whether you want Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to come with the board itself. Of course, you can always add this in later, whether the board comes with basic or upgraded audio, and of course the quality and looks. Value picks start at $130 US with the ASRock B650M Pro RS as my top budget board. It's got great rear panel USB connectivity, 2.5 gigabit LAN, along with strong VRMs that allow upgrades to any future Ryzen CPU, and 3 M.2 NVMe slots, though one of them is only half bandwidth. There's also a Wi-Fi version that sells for $20 more. The MSI Pro B650M-A Wi-Fi is an extremely similar motherboard for $149 that trades the extra M.2 slot for more high-speed USB ports and black styling. And the Gigabyte B650M Gaming Plus Wi-Fi for $139 has just 2 M.2 NVMe slots and weaker USB connectivity with a limited VRM that I'd only use with a Ryzen 5 or Ryzen 7 CPU, but it often goes on sale. Moving over to ATX motherboards, for $150, ASRock's B650 PG Lightning offers a similar M.2 setup to its Pro RS, but increases the rear USB connectivity to include more high-speed USB connections, and has a rock-solid VRM, but no Wi-Fi. If you do want Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, but you don't feel like adding it yourself, for $10 more, the B650 Gigabyte Eagle AX adds that Wi-Fi, but dropped some of the USB connectivity and the wired Ethernet down to 1 gigabit per second. For $169, the MSI B650 Gaming Wi-Fi Plus is basically the ATX size version of MSI's Pro A motherboard, and at $179, the Asus TUF-E has decent USB connectivity and 3 full bandwidth M.2 slots with great black styling. Now, premium motherboards start around $180 US, and they include upgraded audio to either the ALC 1200 or the higher quality ALC 1220 or 4080 audio codecs. My top choice is the motherboard that we went with in this build, the MSI B650 Tomahawk Wi-Fi, which usually sells for $199, but recently has dropped to just $180 US. Now you get Wi-Fi, great matte black styling, ALC 4080 audio, 3 full bandwidth M.2 NVMe drives at Gen 4 speed, and great rear USB and networking connectivity. If you want a white-silver combo instead, the MSI B650 Edge Wi-Fi, it's basically the same board with white styling and RGB, and it upgrades the top NVMe SSD slot to PCIe Gen 5 speed. For more options, check out our Best Motherboard for Ryzen 9000 video, where I go through ITX, color-themed, creator, and alternative motherboards. Next up is the best RAM for Ryzen 5 9600X. Now, AMD recommended DDR5 6000CL30 kits, which is exactly what we've been recommending for Ryzen 7000 series CPUs for some time. So we used one of our favorite Team Group T-Force Delta RGB kits at that speed, which you can pick up for just about $100 US. Remember, we want pairs of sticks, and every fast DDR5 kit in the US is sold as a minimum of a 32GB in 2x16GB configuration, which is plenty for gaming and most content creators. Team Group recently added AMD EXPO one-click overclocking profiles to the 6000 speed kit in addition to the XMP ones. Remember, you do need to go into the BIOS and turn on the XMP or EXPO timings to get the RAM to run at the full rated speed, which is included in our PC setup guide. Now, we have yet to see any difference between XMP and EXPO one-click overclocking profiles in terms of performance, and all the AM5 motherboards, they'll use either one. So I wouldn't really worry about which one you get, but if the kit has both EXPO and XMP timings, use the EXPO profile. We also did some very limited testing with a faster T-Force Delta DDR5 7200 CL34 XMP kit, which goes for about $25 to $30 more. We tested Horizon Zero Dawn, Homeworld 3, Assassin's Creed Valhalla, and Watch Dogs Legion at 1080p at the second highest quality presets with no upscaling or ray tracing on our RTX 4070 Super. We used the one-click XMP profile with no manual clock tuning for the CPU memory controller or the Infinity Fabric. If you're considering manually tuning your RAM on our system, this resulted in a 2:1 to auto ratio, with the Infinity Fabric at 2000 MHz. The only notable difference between the RAM kits was a very slight performance regression with the 7200 kit in Watch Dogs Legion of about 2.5%, and a slight increase in the 1% lows in Homeworld. Otherwise, really no notable change. And remember that RAM speed is less important as we go up from 1080p to 1440p to 4K, and we become more GPU bound. So if you're like most folks and just want to buy a kit and use the XMP or EXPO for a one-click overclock, then a standard 2x16GB DDR5 6000CL30 kit, it's still the sweet spot, and I'll leave a couple of kits linked down in the video description. Let's talk about the best CPU cooler for the Ryzen 5 9600X. Now, like the Ryzen 7000 series, the new Ryzen 9000 series CPUs are designed to use up all available cooling under load to increase clock speeds and give you more performance. That said, like the Ryzen 7600X, all you really need is a $17 to $30 budget tower air cooler, like the Thermalright Assassin Spirit, id Cooling SE214XT, or the Cooler Master Hyper 212 Halo. Now, to bling out our system, I went a little crazy with the Thermalright Aqua Elite V3 360mm all-in-one liquid cooler. It's got amazing RGB fans and a pump head for an insanely low $56? Like, how does Thermalright even make money on this thing? Now, the temps are great and the fans are inaudible at lower RPM, with the pump just barely audible at 100%, which I'd probably adjust down to 85 or 90% just to make it dead silent. The 240mm version for $45, it'd cool the CPU just as well. Let's talk about the best SSD for Ryzen 9600X. If you haven't had a chance to watch our best SSD for gaming 2024 video, it's linked in the video description under how to build a PC playlist if you want a deeper dive. But basically, there's no current gaming benefit from using anything that's faster than even a SATA SSD. But Gen 3 and Gen 4 NVMe SSDs are equally cheap, faster for other workloads, and easy to install. And Gen 5 NVMe SSDs, they continue to be massively overpriced and a total waste of your money. For budget-focused builds, the Silicon Power A60, Team Group MP33, or the Western Digital SN580 are great drives that we've recommended in the past. Now, Silicon Power has recently discounted their UD90 to nearly the same price as the slower A60, and we used the 1TB model for just $59 in this build. Now, for more premium builds that are looking to add a DRAM cache to make their SSD a little snappier when doing things like file copies and game installs, consider grabbing a drive like the Acer Predator GM7000, currently selling for just $71 right now. But my recommendation, don't overspend too much here. For those needing a lot of storage, 4TB NVMe SSDs are often the best price per terabyte. And this ain't 2017 anymore, so you don't need a separate drive for your operating system. A single large capacity drive is absolutely fine to save money. I'll leave several different SSDs linked down in the video description. For the PC case, what we want here is good airflow, but we don't want to overspend too much. Now, good budget options in either black or white with ARGB fans can be had for as little as about $63, like this incredible Motherboard XR ATX case with 3 included ARGB fans, including the side fans. They're reverse blade, so they're actually intake without you having to look at the ugly backside of the fan. In fact, I'm so impressed with this case that I named it one of the best ATX cases in our recent Best PC Case 2024 video. Now, both front and side glass panels come off for an easy building experience. It has rubber grommet hole covers, and the I/O is positioned at the bottom, which makes cable management a super breeze. Typically, I want to see at least 2 intake and 1 exhaust fans, and a positive pressure setup so we can intercept as much dust as possible at the metal mesh or dust filters at the intake fans. With the 360mm AIO, this is actually a negative pressure setup, but the metal mesh at the bottom should intercept most of the dust, and we could add up to 3 fans on the PSU shroud to increase that intake pressure. And this thing just looks amazing. A similar micro ATX sized option is the Okino Aqua 3 for $59, or if you want a more traditional front intake ATX case, the Fantex XT Ultra for $79 is very solid and supports rear connector motherboards like MSI's Project Zero. And for a super premium ATX case at an affordable price of just $95, the Lee & Lee Landcool 216, it's the best building experience I've ever had and has excellent airflow with its dual 160mm fans. Finally, let's talk PSUs. If you haven't seen our best PSU 2024 buying guide, we cover how to size and buy the best unit for your build based on unit quality rather than the nonsensical 80+ ratings. I'll leave it linked below in the How to Build a PC playlist. Basically, I take the rated power draw and PC part picker of all the components, then multiply that by 1.5 to get the minimum wattage. Because the Ryzen 9600X, it's so power efficient, many builds just won't require much more than a 650 to 750 watt unit using this formula. For more value-focused builds, I think a unit rated on the C tier on the PSU Cultist list is probably fine, like the MSI A650BN or A750BN. For just a bit more, A tier rated units like the Corsair RME, Be Quiet 12M, or MSI A-GL models are well priced and are PCIe Gen 5 as well as either ATX 3.0 or 3.1, and include the 12-volt high power connector for our NVIDIA GPU so we don't have to use the adapter that came with the GPU. We went overkill with an 850 watt Thermaltake GF-A3, which is another well-priced A-tier rated unit for just $89, but again, a 750 watt unit would have been just fine. Now, I've put together 2 build templates to get you started. The first is a value-focused build that uses the Ryzen 9600X at the MSRP of $279. AMD sent us the CPU prior launch, so big thank you to AMD. This build uses a budget tower air cooler, a value-focused B650 micro ATX motherboard, DDR5 6000CL30 non-RGB RAM, a 1TB budget NVMe SSD, a currently $479 RX 7800 XT 16GB GPU, a value-focused micro ATX PC case, and a C-tier rated 750 watt PSU. Now that build comes in right at $1,180 US. For the more premium build that we put together, including the $599 Gigabyte RTX 4070 Super 12GB WindForce OC model, 360mm AIO CPU cooler with ARGB, the RGB RAM kit, the more premium motherboard, the ATX case, and a slightly better NVMe SSD, we come in at right around $1,430 US. Obviously, you can spend more if you want, especially on a bigger GPU, but those templates should get you started, and I'm gonna leave both those linked down in the video description, along with some alternative parts. Remember to check out everything that's linked down in the video description for current pricing and availability in your region, and of course the linked videos like our How to Build a PC playlist, including our guide on how to build a PC and set up your PC after your build. If you got value out of this video, please give it a like, it makes a huge difference to the channel, and of course subscribe for more cool PC content. And we'll catch you on the next one.